Jeff, narrated by Lorne Bronstein. Patient ID 61,225. Name Gaia. Gaia has shown great remorse for her creations. Despite her omnipresence, exposure to her creations have allowed her to develop a spectrum of emotions otherwise foreign to beings such as herself. Excerpt taken from Thaddeus Botgore session 61,225. Recorded 2082. Jacqueline was taller than most her age, and with that height came wisdom. Before she could bear child, she was already caring for the younglings, not her own. From a young age, Jacqueline knew the importance of the history of her kind, and promised to the elders to continue to share the tales of their struggles and legacy. Today is a special day, for today is the day Jacqueline retells the story from the beginning. Gather round. William, leave Aaron alone. Jacqueline watched as the younglings laid cardboard on the cold and cracked concrete floor before finding a place to sit. Okay, everyone. Remember to respect the space of others. No pushing. Joshua, stop it! A youngling with big, beady eyes lifted his head at the sound of his name being called. Sorry, Mrs. Bloom. Jacqueline nodded her head in acknowledgement. Less important than making a mistake, the whole class took over in unison, is learning from our mistakes. Everyone giggled. Jacqueline smiling. Very good. Now, are we ready? Yeah, shouted the little ones. Jacqueline sat at the front of the class, on the floor to ensure eye level with the little ones. She felt it was important to connect with them on their level. To most, they're children. They serve little use until they can scavenge or fight, but Jacqueline hoped for a world where that wouldn't need to be. Jacqueline sat up straight to project confidence and ensure her voice was as clear as possible. As she scanned over the younglings one final time to make certain there was no tomfoolery. Every eye from the first row to the last was glued to her. Okay, Jacqueline said. Let's begin. Legend says they were here since the beginning. Stories foretold by the elders claim they're as ancient as hunger itself. Their origins remain unknown, but their purpose is clear. Kill anything that moves. The following day took an eternity to arrive. Both Jacqueline and Jeff knew what dangers lay ahead, but the other option was certain death. Are you sure you have everything? Asked Jacqueline. How many times are you going to ask? Said Jeff. Don't. Jacqueline paused. Not now. I'm sorry, Jeff said with sorrow in his voice. Jacqueline said nothing as Jeff suffocated in his shame. The silence filled the room. If I don't, Jacqueline cut him off, I'll have none of that. Jacqueline continued, you will come home safe and with food. Your kids rely on you, and I rely on you. But I don't want to hear it again. Do you understand? Jeff lowered his head. I understand. Jacqueline escorted Jeff to the door. A large boulder was placed in front of the hideout, making it look like a pile of rubble. Look at me, Jacqueline said. Jeff looked into her eyes. Eyes he loved. Eyes he would risk certain death for. Seeing her face was a gentle reminder that life without her is no life at all. And without food, no one, including the younglings, will survive much longer. I love you, Jeff said. Goodbye. Never say goodbye, she said sharply. Be safe. I'll see you soon. Jeff smiled. I'll see you soon. As Jeff left the comfort of his den, the ground rumbled as the stone door closed behind him. It's been 3 hours since Jeff left, and the silence was deafening. To ease a worried mind, Jacqueline gathered the younglings for story time. The little ones sat beside one another, huddled for warmth, while Jacqueline sat in the front. Where's Daddy? Asked one of the younglings, sitting in the front. Jacqueline thought for a moment. She continued. Daddy's getting food, Jacqueline said. Can I go with him? Asked the little one. This was the first time it occurred to Jacqueline that eventually the younglings will have to fend for themselves. In her best effort, Jacqueline tried to protect them from the painful truth and the dangers that come with it. It wasn't until this moment Jacqueline realized the dangers ignorance bring. It's time you knew the story of the Tepek," said Jacqueline. Her stomach in knots, mouth like sandpaper. She swallowed, but the saliva clung to her throat like syrup. Her chest weighed heavy. She knew today was the day the younglings become adults. Jeff stood at the edge of his den, scouting for the Tepek. The wind howled as a machine running long beyond its lifespan rumbled in the background. The rusty rumbling clouded Jeff's focus. The air was a frigid cold, but had a deadness to it that was hard to describe. Every bone in Jeff's body said, "Turn back, not today," but he knew that wasn't a choice he had the luxury to make. Jeff thought back to the wise words of his father, High Chief Rogo. "Just as we hunt, we too will be hunted, for it is the circle that brings us all as one." Chief Rogo was a respectable man, a leader of the community and a master hunter. When Jeff was a child, he would hear tales of his father's expeditions. Back then, food was less scarce. The Tepek were naive to the ways of the hunt. Jeff thought back to his childhood. There were days where food was left to decay due to such an abundance. Good times. No one ever expected the pain that would soon come after. The day Jeff became an adult, he was instructed to journey with his father and learn the ways of the hunt, as is tradition. Jeff was nervous, uncoordinated. Never hunting before, Jeff felt unprepared. Having the weight of being Chief Rogo's son bears a responsibility few can understand. "One day, you will need to lead our people," said Chief Rogo. "Dad, don't speak like that. Hold your tongue." "Never speak when an elder is speaking." Jeff nodded. "This is not a duty we choose, but one chosen for us." Chief Rogo placed an arm around Jeff as they made their way to the top of the hill that overlooked their encampment. "One day, you will see the great honor the gods have presented you by asking you to lead our people." The idea of being a leader scared Jeff. He wasn't a hunter, and he was far from a leader. It was later that day Chief Rogo was killed. Jeff held his father in his arms as he twitched and convulsed. The pain Jeff felt that day was unmatched. That was the day Jeff became chief. As Jeff stood at the threshold, a poisonous, sour smell filled his nostrils as he crept down a mountain of discarded garbage and rotted meat. The rats ate whatever flesh was left, leaving mostly dried bones scattered throughout the butcher shop. The cracked tile floor was cold to the touch, the air acrid with a decay that almost took on a sweetness. The machine still rumbling in the background clouded Jeff's thinking. Jeff scouted the abandoned kitchen for scraps. Wouldn't that be nice, Jeff thought to himself, to find food and end this torment. Jeff knew he wouldn't find anything, but as his late father said, he was a dreamer. Jeff noticed the swinging door that led to the next room was open a crack. He cautiously crept over to the door, mindful of his steps. The Tepek were wise to the ways of the hunt, and often left traps. He was careful, or as careful as one could be when risking your life. The copper-colored doors were rusted. The paint curled away as time decayed all things. As Jeff got closer to the door, the smell of the rust filled his nostrils. The copper smell reminded him of blood. A chill ran down his spine. Jeff took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, but instead filled his lungs with the acrid smell of copper and decay. Jeff slipped through the crack of the door to prevent creaks from the door moving. That's when Jeff saw it. When Jeff was a youngling, he was told tales of his people. Stories would say there were thousands, communities of brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, and more. Jeff thought these were simply tales of legend, as he never knew more than the small tribe of his father, his mother, and his father's brothers. Today was the day Jeff saw the truth. Hordes of corpses decorated the ceilings, hung like ornaments for entertainment. The bodies decayed from time, left to rot. Bile raced up Jeff's throat and out his mouth. The bodies went as far as the eye could see. Finally, Jeff saw the true nature of the Tepec. They were never competing for resources, Jeff thought. We were the resource. In that moment, the fluorescent light began to fade. Darkness covered Jeff's vision as he felt a force coming his way. It was the hand of a Tepec. A man of medium height with curly brown hair, dressed in a well-fitted plaid suit, wiped his hand in a napkin disgusted. Ugh, honey, I found another fly. A blonde-haired woman, short in stature, wearing track pants and a baggy t-shirt, spoke up. Sweetheart, you know your father didn't take care of this place. I told you not to wear that suit. I didn't think it would be this bad, the man replied. And look at all these flies. How could he just leave them hanging like this? This place needs to be condemned. You promised your father you wouldn't let that happen. He never told me this place was a shithole. And what's that awful smell? It's a butcher shop, Paul. What do you think the smell is? The woman thought for a minute and finally said, We'll hire an exterminator. Gut the place, clean it up, I promise. When we're done, it will look as good as new. Notes. Father, husband, provider. Jeff was thrown into a world filled with pain, despair, and the great unknown. While he may not have known it at the time, Jeff's life was a beacon of hope, a story to be told for generations, to be remembered and cherished as a lesson of what happens when bravery snuffs out the little voice in your head that says, turn back. Thaddeus Botgore.